Is going on, everybody? Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have a big update today regarding the latest predictions and projections for the 2024 COLA increase, right? So you're probably watching this video after it's been recorded, but it's actually being filmed live. I'm live on YouTube now. So I'm going to give people 5 to 10 minutes to trickle in. In the meantime, before we get into the update and the prediction for what COLA could be, we're going to do some quick updates on what's happening with Social Security in general and what's latest in the headlines. Now, it's going to be really important that you plan ahead for this COLA because, if it's a large COLA, you can plan your budget a little more loosely. But if it's a small COLA, you're going to want to keep your budget a little tighter, right? So this is going to be a big, big update. So guys, stick around for this. Again, we're going to give people like 5-10 minutes just to trickle in. Now, in headlines, really, really bad, showing that the Social Security workforce is really, really burned out, right? Now, these are the good folks that work at the administration. They answer the phones when you call with a question. They're helping run the websites. They're trying to, tell you all the information you need to decide what is the best move for you. They're not really giving advice, but they're giving you all the facts you need so you can decide, hey, should I start taking my benefits now? Should I wait a couple of years? Should I claim spousal benefits? Things like that. And quite frankly, these folks are burned out. And again, stick around. We're going to jump into the COLA update in just a couple of minutes. We're just going to give people a couple of minutes to trickle in. So we're going to cover some kind of broad news, what's in the headlines when it comes to Social Security. As always, guys, hit that like if you like this video. Also, drop a comment down below, guys. Kevin, thank you for being here. Thank all of you for being here. And I really appreciate when you guys drop a comment. Let me know you're here. Let me know how you're feeling. And let me know what you think about these general updates as well as the COLA update as well. Now, Social Security Administration workforce is burning out. And if you guys can't see that, I'm going to try and make that a little bigger there. And essentially what's been happening is, not to get political here, but this really started back in the Obama era when they made a compromise in order to pass the debt ceiling, which, the debt ceiling is in the news right now. It is almost every year. In order to pass the debt ceiling during the Obama administration, they cut a deal where they agreed to basically cut funding to certain programs. And yes, it included Social Security in order to get that debt ceiling deal done. And that wasn't just a one-time cut. This was basically over the next 10 to 20 years. So over the last 10, 15 years or so, the funding that goes to Social Security, and this isn't funding for benefits. This is funding just to help keep the program going, to pay for the employees that are keeping it going. That funding has not been increasing with inflation, right? So basically, they don't have the adequate amount of employees. Typical, right? Like any other corporation, even though it's not a corporation, the government tends to run like one. And Donna, thank you for being here. Thanks for your comment. And essentially, they don't have as many employees as they should. The employees aren't getting paid as well as they should. You have one person doing the job of 3 people. And because of this, not only are you getting long wait times, right? Like when you go to the administration personally, physically to a field office, you're waiting in line for hours. When you call, you're waiting in line for hours on the phone. You also have these employees burning out as well. And this is not good for Social Security, right? Social Security is such an important program. We want these employees to be taken care of. And the better they're taken care of, the better they're going to take care of, the people that are on actual Social Security benefits as well, right? You won't have to wait for hours in line. You won't have to wait for hours on the phone. And this is just one way that they haven't been taking care of Social Security, right? Not only are they not increasing benefits in line with inflation, they're also not taking care of the actual administration itself, which is really corroding the program, right? Morale is getting bad. The user experience, the customer service is getting worse as well. And this is a massive problem, right? And a lot of people that work for Social Security are actually older folks as well, right? Folks that are also nearing retirement. So that's really, really bad. Now, with that said, folks, let's jump into the COLA update. It's what you guys are here for. Mary, thank you for being here. Mary from Wisconsin. Kevin, thank you for commenting. Maria, thank you for being here as well. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. Let's talk about COLA, guys. This is massive, right? And this is a concept we talked about last year. This actually happened in 2022 as well, where we all know at this point that COLA, the annual cost of living adjustments, the increases for Social Security, they are based off of inflation. And they're not based off of inflation for the entire year before. They're based off of inflation for Q3 of the prior year. So just the third quarter, which is, I believe, July, September, and October. And what happened last year is we've had this massive inflation for the last couple of years. But last year, in the beginning of the year in 2022, we had massive inflation of like 9%, 8.7%, 8.5%. And this was in the beginning of the year, right? So seniors, along with everyone else, they were dealing with this massive inflation. But then later in the year, during Q3, inflation dropped to like 7%, 6%, right? So because of that, they got hit with this large inflation earlier in the year, but then didn't really get the full benefit of that because inflation went down during Q3, which is when they measure COLA, and then you ended up with that smaller COLA. It was still a big COLA, but it wasn't as big as it could have been, if it had been increased how in line with the inflation earlier in the year, right? If that makes sense. Now, essentially, the same thing is happening this year, and it's crazy, right? The way things worked out. Now, if they calculated COLA based off of Q1, it would have worked out better for seniors last year and this year. And, the latest data coming out, the data comes out every month. They call it CPI, the Consumer Price Index. And that's essentially how they measure inflation, and it's what they use to calculate the annual COLA. Now, inflation is trending down, right, folks? It's been going down the last, 4 or 5 months, I believe. And experts are now saying that if inflation keeps going down like they expect it to, COLA is not going to be good, guys. It is not going to be good. And again, we want inflation to go down. Obviously, it's better for everybody. But it's just really unfortunate the way the timing runs out when you have inflation really high in the beginning of the year. Then when it comes to measuring COLA during Q3, you keep having inflation going down at that point in time, right? Again, we want inflation to go down, but the timing of it couldn't be worse for seniors and couldn't be worse for folks who are on Social Security benefits. And this is why this is super important that when you're making your budget, when you're planning ahead, you have to take into account that although we've still had massive inflation all calendar year, there is a good chance that by the time COLA comes around, inflation is going to be closer to normal, maybe around 3%, maybe 2%. And no one knows for certain, right? But this is what the experts think. And the consensus right now is that there's a really, really good chance that COLA in 2024 could be less than 3%, which is completely insane, right? Now, obviously, this depends on inflation. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Anything could come up. The geopolitical crisis in Russia made inflation worse last year. No one saw that coming. But the way things are looking now, it could trickle down. Some people even think, and no one knows what's going to happen, but some people even think that with inflation having been so high last year, it could make it dramatically lower at the end of this year. Like we could even get 0% inflation some months towards the end of the year. And again, that sounds crazy. Nobody knows what's going to happen. But when you think about it, if this time last year inflation was 7%, and then the economy's slowing down, we're potentially heading into a recession, you do end up getting some 0% inflation months, right? We got that during the Obama administration when you saw 0% COLAs for a couple of years, I believe, right? So let's take a quick look at this article. Now, Social Security's next COLA may be lower than 3%. The cost of living adjustments over the past 2 years have failed to keep up with inflation. And not only is that because of what we just talked about with it being measured in Q3, but it's also because seniors deal with very specific expenses that most people don't, right? Specifically healthcare costs, and a larger percentage of seniors' income goes to things like essentials like rent, utilities, groceries, things like that, right? Now, the official rate of inflation just fell in March, which we just got that data about a week ago. But the bad news on rising prices isn't over for seniors. Now, next year's Social Security cost of living adjustment may fall below 3% if the numbers on prices continue to fall in line with current forecasts. And this is the Senior Citizens League that is predicting that. Now, we've referenced the Senior Citizens League dozens of times on this channel. They're a nonprofit advocacy group for seniors, and they do a lot of research, they do a lot of fundraising. They're out there really doing the work to kind of project these things for seniors, right? So it's a trusted source, essentially. And they're thinking, from the horse's mouth, essentially, that COLA could be less than 3%. Now, that's on top of cost of living adjustments over the past 2 years that have failed to keep up with inflation, the pro senior think tank reports. Now, the average Social Security recipient is more than $1,000 a year worse off in real purchasing power terms as a result of surging inflation, senior analyst Mary Johnson says. Mary Johnson, she's a big analyst when it comes to retirement, everything like Social Security, 401ks, pensions, things like that. And basically, when you take into account inflation, even though we had these massive COLAs these last couple of years, you're $1,000 per year worse off, right? $1,000 per year worse off. And that's not even counting potentially having a teeny COLA in 2024. So again, hate to be the one to give bad news. And again, this isn't set in stone. It's just the current prediction or the current projection of what they think is going to happen. But typically, they're pretty accurate, right? When it comes to them making these predictions when they come out in April, May, June, over the last few years, they've been pretty darn accurate at predicting what COLA is going to be. Now, meanwhile, this year's COLA, nominally 8.7%, which was 2023's COLA, has been entirely wiped out by the rising costs of Medicare Part B premiums, right? Now, that's interesting because for a lot of folks, Part B premiums actually went down, if you remember, because certain medications were taken off the formulary, and that made Medicare Part B premiums a little bit cheaper. But when you take everything into account, definitely purchasing power is going down. Now, the 8.7% COLA increase in 2022 exceeded the actual rate of inflation every month so far this year by an average of 2.6%. So you got that 8.7% COLA for 2023, and so far this year, that 8.7% has been higher than the actual inflation we've had every month in 2023. But it's always trailing, right? So last year in 2022, you were dealing with massive inflation with basically no COLA, right? Then you get the COLA a year later, and you're really getting almost like a back pay COLA type of situation. And the same thing is expected to happen this year, right? You might get a 3% COLA, and then next year maybe inflation's 2%. We don't know, but really, you're hurting from last year is what's happening, right? Now, that's about $44 per month based on an average Social Security benefit of $1,694. So essentially, the average senior got an increase of $44.90 per month in 2023 compared to last year. That's for the average person. Some people make a lot more. Some people make a lot less. But that so-called cushion is completely consumed by the $164.90 a month Medicare Part B premiums, which are automatically deducted from Social Security benefits, right? Now, those numbers are a little bit funky because, the premium didn't increase by $164. It just is $164, but take that for what you will. Now, Social Security calculates the annual cost of living adjustments every fall to take effect at the start of the following year in January, of the next year. The adjustments are based on a comparison of average consumer prices over the summer with the same prices during the summer a year earlier, right? So again, that's Q3, I believe July, August, September. So this year it'll be July, August, September in 2023 compared to what costs were in 2022. And that's how they're going to make their COLA adjustment, right? And again, it's the average of those 3 months. But because the adjustments don't take effect until the following year, during periods of rising inflation, senior citizens are left behind the curve. Exactly what we just explained a couple of minutes ago. You're getting your COLA in January, you're getting that COLA increase, but that increase is for the inflation you had to suffer through the year before, right? So you're always kind of behind the curve. Now, a new survey of 1,000 senior citizens conducted by the Senior Citizens League found that a jump in the numbers of seniors feeling the economic pain. An astonishing 45% told pollsters they were carrying credit card debt for 90 days or more. Pay off that credit card debt, folks. It is terrible. You're paying like 20% interest. I know a lot of you can't, but if you can, you really have to pay that off. And the number saying that they have depleted a retirement account over the past 12 months rocketed during the fourth quarter from 20 to 26%. Now, a lot of people have multiple retirement accounts, like different IRAs, 401ks, and things like that. But even just depleting one of them is scary, right? When you're in retirement, you're living off of your Social Security, your 401k, your IRA, things like that, maybe a pension if you're lucky. Anytime you have a single account dwindle completely, That's scary, right? And you have 26% of seniors saying that in the last 12 months, they depleted at least one of those accounts, right? Completely terrifying. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments below, guys. This stuff is completely terrifying, but again, it's why you have to plan ahead. And it's why you have to make sure, you know what, when you're making your budget, if you're expecting a 5% COLA, you got to look ahead to these things, right? These things aren't set in stone. It's just a prediction. But keep in mind, you're not going to get a big COLA like last year. It's going to be a lot smaller. No one knows for certain, but there is a good chance that the COLA is going to be somewhere around 3%, right? We'll see where that lands, but it's been pretty accurate. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments, guys. Really quickly before we end today's video, I want to take a look at the comments here. Just give a shout out to you guys. Donna, thank you so much for commenting. Mary, Martel, Lisa, William, Kevin, Pat, Patricia, I believe, Charles, Martel, Karen. Thank you so much for commenting. And if you guys are watching the recording, drop a comment down below. Let me know your thoughts on this. And again, I will keep you posted as things develop. But if you guys made it this far into the video, thank you so much for watching. You could have watched any video on YouTube, but you chose to watch this one, so I really appreciate that. So until the next video, take care and have a great day.